All right. So let me get started. Many people have probably been on a previous Meet Mac Mondays. This is the agenda. There are several items on here, and we'll just get right into it. Starting with the case regarding the land that was previously set aside or purchased by the Newtown Sewer Authority for developing a wastewater treatment plant, which was eventually abandoned because of protests, and Newtown said they were not in favor. And there's a case before the court related to that, which continues to go on. I'm not a legal expert, so some of the key stakeholders, the main defendant is K42 University LLC, which is owned, I believe, by Jim Worthington, the owner of the Newtown Athletic um, Club, I guess it is. And on just to get to the interesting stuff. Uh, well, just to review, there was a rate increase a year ago or so, or in January, I believe, maybe before then. But a 47% rate increase, and we clarified that 26% of that is used to was set aside or supposed to be used to pay the loan for the land, which costs $11.5 million dollars. And so we're still paying that rate increase, but the land hasn't been sold yet. It's still, it's just up for sale now because they had to get permission from the judge to put this land up for sale. As you know, this is all follows the eminent domain, which if they didn't get that permission from the judge, they could not do anything with the land for 21 years because the first step was to offer it back to Jim Worthington for the same price that they paid for it, and he refused. And since then, he's come back with some low ball offers that they're not considering to be real offers. But it's a 17-acre lot. It's got the authority is going to handle the sale itself and not hire a realtor, supposedly to save money, to avoid those fees. And when I asked about how they accept offers, they can accept any offer they want. They don't have to accept, the highest or lowest, as if it were a bidding process. So they have complete discretion on who to sell the land to and how much they're going to get for that land. And my impression is they are going to get less than the $11.5 million dollars that they spent on it, considering the lowball offers they've already received. Uh, but that remains to be seen. And they're not going to release all the information regarding the offers until I guess they decide who they're going to sell it to. That's how that stands as far as I know. One other important thing was the walking bridge, the pedestrian bridge over Newtown Creek. Uh, there were three bids submitted, and they were all over budget. Basically, the budget for this bridge was originally said to be, it would cost totally $750,000. So, and that includes the fees paid to the general contracting engineering group, which is Howell Engineering, which designed this bridge and was in charge of the bidding and so forth. And going forward, so what they had at the last meeting of the Board of Supervisors, uh, it was decided that they would throw out these bids and rebid this project. And the hope is to get it under what they need. And I think what they have to do is get a bid that's under $800,000 because the only money we have for this comes from a grant of about $1 million. So they've already spent over $116,000 for Howell Engineering to do its work and Kilkenny Law Firm. So they already spent $116,000 of that $1 million, right? And I envision that the Howe is still going to be involved if the project as it gets started. So they have to find a bid that's 30% less, than what they've got, basically, is how I look at it. So I don't know how successful they're going to be or if they're going to have to come back and ask for money from another source, hopefully not from the taxpayers. The other thing that was decided at the last Board of Supervisors meeting was regards to the Environmental Advisory Council, and there were only three active members, and a new person was named to the board, Eleanor Wolcott, who majored in environmental sciences. So she is very qualified. So now there will be four members of this seven-member uh, council. And it was verified that a quorum of four members need to be physically present at a meeting to have an official meeting to vote on actions and to create the minutes and so on. So right now, that means every member has to attend the meeting physically, and there can't be any members phoning in unless you have a five-member committee, and you still need four members physically present, a quorum, before you can allow a member to phone in or to participate by Zoom. So this is a very tough situation until they name a new member. My name is still in there, but they told me I don't have the votes, so I was not named as a member. Sorry to say. I know several people are interested in development in Newtown, and one of the issues was this Lafayette One, which is a four-lot subdivision here. And we talked about this maybe at the last Meet Mac Monday, or I've been talking to residents about it. And lots of residents had concerns, including Neil, who is on the call right now. Um, and their concerns basically had to do with heavy traffic from the construction when the construction's going on Lafayette Street, which is very narrow, children playing, and they asked for access from Penn Street, which is up north from this location. Now, this project is a by right project, which means it doesn't have to go through the Board of Supervisors for approval or the zoning hearing board because it requires no variances. And that was one of the concerns of the developer with regard to some of the other things that the residents were asking about. Um, they wanted to, for example, instead of having access to this traffic circle by sleepy Lafayette Street, they wanted access from Penn Street to come down this way. And that would require variances and approval by the zoning hearing board, et cetera, and the Board of Supervisors. So the contractor said, no way, Jose, basically. Um, so that was are probably not going to happen. There's also concern about the wildlife that is on that lot. For example, a fox den, and uh, I was interested in, well, maybe this is something for the Environmental Advisory Council to consider because the new person, her special interest was in wildlife. And hopefully that, we need to relocate that fox den. But even with a right to know, right, a right, a by right situation, there are things that the residents can try to achieve, mostly through, working with the developer. And the developer, it still has to go through the planning commission for a review, which it has. And I think at the last meeting, the planning commission asked the residents to submit their concerns by email, which I believe a lot of residents did. And maybe Neil can get into more about this in the discussion, um, if that's okay. The next thing in terms of development, this is just one of the um, that development, I guess, would require maybe 4 EDUs. An EDU is an equivalent uh, dwelling unit measurement that the sewer authority uses. So every single family home is allotted 1 EDU for its wastewater, bathroom, and so on. So these are the future projects through 2025 that I was able to get these numbers from the Newtown Sewer Authority. And you could see that there's quite a number of EDUs required, even though I think there's still some kind of a moratorium or it's on handing out EDUs from the Bucks County Water and Sewer Authority. And that's because the Neshaminy Interceptor is a pump station that handles all the water from Newtown and maybe Wrightstown and some other municipalities, and it's getting overloaded, and uh, it has to be in, increased capacity before more EDUs can be handled. And this is something, that I don't know how that's going to work out. We probably could talk about that later if you want, but whoops, getting a little ahead of myself here. Sorry. Whoa, where are we? Yeah, you could see the majority, 85% of these EDUs are projects that are initiated by Jim Worthington. So very interesting. Also interesting is data centers. And I have a few slides here on data center. As you can see, I use AI a lot to create these images and to look at some of these things so that I can understand it. And the Newtown jointure is 3 townships: Newtown Township, Wrightstown, and Upper Makefield. They determine our zoning ordinances, basically, that covers all 3 towns so that we have a use for everything in one of the 3 towns. So every town doesn't have to have a use for every darn thing. Like, for example, a data center. If you don't have a use for a data center in your township area, the a developer could conceivably come in and sue you for not having that use. And this is exactly what happened with Wawa. We did not have a use for a combined gas station and convenience store, so the township was sued. And we should have prepared for that, but we did not. And this is what the Joint is trying to do now with regard to data centers. and they're looking at East Rock Hill and Upper Marion, who have developed some I guess, draft ordinances. And the things that they are able to control is the noise level. There have been complaints about these are very noisy with the generators. There's the use of water. And they've been said that, is a tremendous use of water and deplete some of the groundwater that's necessary for wells and for our supply of water. Now this I also asked at this meeting about things like, well, where can they be built in the Newtown area? For example, farms, that's the largest kind of area that I've seen. It may not be in the three townships, but just up north of where I live, there are farmlands. I guess it could be Lower Mayfield. So they're not part of our thing here, the jointure. Let me move on to the next slide. And, I had AI prepare all these things to try to give you an idea of what kinds of restrictions some of these ordinances are placing upon data centers to make it as hard as possible for them to move in close to where you live. And all this is just designed to have control over that. And because you do need an ordinance to allow it, but exactly what they have to comply with is another matter. One other thing I found out about at the Environmental Advisory Council meeting was that some of these cables, the cables you see being installed under the streets in the borough, are actually optic fiber cables that are supposedly to connect data centers, and especially the data center at Falls, where they've already approved the data center by the Delaware River, I believe, Falls Township. And recently, the borough had said they don't want this work to continue until they have a public meeting to discuss all this. And I would just note that if the cables are meant to connect to falls, they're doing this work in the borough. Eventually, they got to come through the township because, as you know, the borough is just a hole in the donut here, and it has to go through the other part of the donut to get down to Falls. So, this is a matter, I think, which should or would arise in the township. And I'm curious to see if they've been digging up any streets in the township for this. Now, the main thing I want to focus on for a few minutes is neighbors for open government. And will you be my neighbor? Because I think we're looking for new members. We have about 34 people who have signed up to be on our mailing list, and we hope to have some activities and to discuss. Through a newsletter, things like that, uh, some of the issues that concern us with regard to making Newtown Township a more open government. And what do we mean by it? Well, how did this start? That's the what I call the origin story here. And it sounds like a joke, two Democrats, two Republicans, and two independents walk into a bar to talk about open government. Well, they didn't walk into a bar. They walked into Charlie Foyer's home, sat at his dining room table, and so the founding members were me, John Mack, and Charlie Foyer, and Al Dufault, who's also on here, and Donna Sedula, and Todd McGonigal. You may know Todd, he ran for supervisor, and Eric Pomerantz. I don't think Eric's on the call, but he frequently stands up and makes comments at the Board of Supervisors meeting. So what we're looking at in terms of information is what we're calling the information iceberg. What the public sees is like the tip of an iceberg, and the important stuff is down below. You never get to see it. The monthly packet is what the supervisors get, and what they vote on is in there. All the resolutions and the things like that that they need to make decisions on are underwater, basically. And the engineering reports that they look at, and so on and so forth. You can get some of this information by a right to know request. And that's one of the things I think Neighbors for Open Government should be doing, is educating residents on how to get the information that they have a right to. And, we can get into that, but the goal is to lower the water level so that we can see more of what the supervisors get to see when they vote. Because you're able to go to a public meeting and you're able to make a comment when they vote. They always ask any comments from the public. Well, how can you make an educated comment if you're not seeing exactly what they're voting on? Because often they don't mention the details, they don't explain exactly what they are voting on and the details of it. So that's one of the things. So we're nonpartisan. That's what the two format is. Basically, we wanted to be sure we were nonpartisan. We're looking to that we want more transparency. As I mentioned, some of these decisions are made with the data below the water level. Um, there's restricted accessibility. Documents must be easy to find. And there's been some complaints from people about the website. It's very difficult to find information. For example, you could find a bills list, which are the monthly bills paid by the township, but you got to know how to find it. It's not immediately available. And one of the things I suggested, and I'll get into in a bit, is that maybe there should be links on the agenda because that's easily found from the calendar. It should be links on the agendas to some of these things. And we're looking to be sure that we are having a dialogue and not having an argument. We're looking for dialogue and information. Moving forward, and this is an area I think Al was very interested in, the financial data void. I'm not a financial expert, so that I don't understand all of this, but I know, for example, that there used to be monthly financial reports. Since quite a while now, since June 2025, there have not been any monthly financial reports. By the way, because we lost our financial director and that person was not replaced, and taking over that position is Michael Lewis. He's also the manager, who's also the right to know officer, who's also the treasurer. So he handles everything, and I think he makes the budget and he doesn't issue these financial reports and some other financial data that I think maybe Al can get into a little bit more at the discussion. The other main issue is what is called a consent agenda. If you've been to a Board of Supervisors meeting, you know exactly what this is. Sometimes it's a bunch of items under there. Usually, this is meant to speed up the meeting and to have one vote for multiple things like, okay, routine approvals, like the minutes of the last meeting and minor expenditures, maybe. but not things like massive fleet purchases, like a dump truck for $110,000 or for police vehicle that's supposed to be a drug education vehicle. Things like that have been put into the consent agenda and with no discussion whatsoever. And even the bills list, I'm opposed to having the bills list in that consent agenda. The supervisors should be giving us a little idea what some of the major bills are in that list and why they are approving it or not approving it. So we have a thing about the consent agenda. We also have a thing about how do you engage with the supervisors at a public meeting. Now, we don't want to come up there with every comment. We're going to have this long conversation, but sometimes a resident comes up there, like Neil came up to the last meeting, asked about, well, what have the supervisors learned? Have they heard from the residents? We submitted letters. And, he did get an answer, which was good, but most of the time they will just say, well, we're not going to comment on that. And I can see that, you can't comment on everything, but you're not, I don't like to just hear crickets every time you ask for some minor piece of information. And that's what we thought. Now, what did people think? Well, we put out a survey and we asked some of these questions and I'll send you the details in the PowerPoint notes and so on after this meeting. But, talking about financial transparency, that was a big item. Of course, it's money. It's our money. We want to know how it's being spent. Is it being spent properly? Is it being spent according to the budget? How do we know? We want accessible documents. Like I mentioned, some of these things are hard to find on the website. If you're having resolutions and you want to vote on it, uh, can you link to the resolution in the agenda so that the public can see it before the meeting and be able to get up there and ask intelligent questions or make intelligent comments without having a conversation? I mentioned the website improvements and interactive public meetings, meaning, let's have more of a conversation. But, there are public meetings of the Board of Supervisors called work sessions, which is something, for example, that the borough has called for with regard to data centers. And I suggested to the Board of Supervisors that we have a work session for data centers, for example, like what the borough is doing. There's only been one work session was in January, and there hasn't been any since. They're always canceled. So this is where there could be more dialogue with residents. So what we're calling is we need to open the door. We're not trying to tear things down. We're trying to open the door to make it more transparent. So I encourage you to join our mailing list and just send email to this address here. I could show you the website, but all that information is available in the handouts. I'll leave it up to that to be able so that you can be able to see that. I'm not going to look at our design for the website. That's not as important as you signing up to be on our mailing list because we hope to be doing some more activities. And I think that's about it for my part of the discussion. And I just want to open it up to the floor now.